Hey friends, it's Mary Giordano and welcome to Unapologetically Wild. Every single day, you have a choice. You can stay where you are, or you can step into the possibility of something even greater. And I'm here to spark that flame within you and inspire you to show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. Messy, scared, and real. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to Unapologetically Wild. I have a question for you. Have you ever had those moments where you think, if I just learn more, research more, I'll finally feel ready? Yeah, me too. It's a thing. We all do it. But what I've learned over the years is that idea is a big, fat lie. Confidence doesn't come from knowing. It comes from doing. And no person, no book, no podcast, no course, no Google search has taught me that more than experience itself. If you're anything like me, you've probably spent so much time trying to prepare. We read the books, we listen to the podcast, we Google ourselves into oblivion, searching, scrolling, convincing ourselves that if we just gather just a little more information, we'll finally feel safe enough to take the leap. And sure, learning is powerful. It matters. It's absolutely essential. But at some point, you have got to ask yourself, when does all this preparation actually turn into action? Because confidence isn't built by sitting on the sidelines and gathering information. It's built by stepping into the game, making choices, and proving to yourself that you can actually fucking handle it. You know that saying, everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten? For years, I definitely felt like there was some truth to that. But as I got older, as I started adventuring more, traveling more, exploring more, really when I moved to Colorado back in 2010, it was at that point when I threw myself into the mountains, the trails, and the backcountry that I realized something incredibly powerful. Everything I truly needed to know, I would learn through Mother Nature. By getting outside, stepping into the wild, exploring new places, and learning to trust myself along the way. Because the outdoors, it doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't hand you step-by-step instructions or guarantee you this easy path. You have to trust yourself when the trail doesn't go as planned, when the fear creeps in, when the conditions change, and you have to adapt. That's what adventure does. It teaches you who you are. It pushes you beyond what you thought you were capable of. It forces you to face the unknown, and that's why I keep seeking it out. Why I say yes to the trails, the challenges, the moments that stretch me as a human being. And it's why I've planned some really big adventures this year, not just for myself, but also for all you women out there who are ready to step outside your comfort zones too. Because when you put yourself in those places, when you allow nature, adventure, and exploration to show you who you are, you walk away transformed. In this episode, I'm sharing why the biggest lessons in life don't happen when you stay comfortable. They happen when you say yes to adventure, to travel, and to the outdoors. Because growth isn't found in the familiar. It's found when you step into the unknown and trust yourself to figure it out along the way. Let's get into it. One of the biggest lessons I've learned through adventure, through the outdoors, through life in general, is that trust, it's not something you just automatically start with. It's something you build. And in the beginning, you're not going to fully trust yourself, and that's okay. When I first started exploring, I relied on maps, reviews, and detailed plans for everything. And honestly, I still do because preparation is smart. But what I've learned over time is that you can't always rely on the plan to match the experience. An All Trails map or GPS might show you the route, but it can't tell you how it'll feel under your feet. A hiking blog might give you tips, but it won't prepare you for the reality of an unexpected storm or a trail that's way steeper than you imagined. Because at some point, the plan doesn't make the decision for you. You do. And this applies whether you're on a trail in the backcountry, paddling through unfamiliar waters, or standing at the edge of something new, feeling that weight of uncertainty. The truth is, things don't always go as planned, and we know that from experience. And if you've ever started something totally new, which we all have, you know exactly what I mean. I'm actually going to use an example of when I became a nurse, a brand new baby nurse. And for all my nurses out there, you're going to totally relate to this story. For the first few years of my nursing career, I did everything by the book. I followed the protocols, memorized the steps, and relied completely on what I had been taught. because that's what you do when you're new. You don't have the experience yet to be able to think through things critically. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. That's expected. There's even a name for this, the Benner's novice to expert theory. It explains how nurses go from being totally dependent on rules to eventually developing this deep intuition and judgment. In the beginning, you don't have the experience to make these complex decisions, so you just lean on structure. But over time, through real experience, real situations, you start seeing patterns, you start making calls on your own, and eventually you just know. And that's exactly how it is with adventuring, with life. At first, you follow this path exactly as it's laid out, but at some point, you start to learn to trust your own instincts and you stop second guessing every single decision. You stop needing every single thing to feel absolutely certain before you move forward. You realize you can figure things out as you go. And that kind of trust, it's not something you're born with. It's something you earn step by step, choice by choice, experience by experience. Here's the bottom line. You do not need to trust yourself fully yet. Just trust that you will be able to learn as you go. The only way to build confidence is to step into the unknown time and time again until you start to realize that you have the ability to handle whatever comes next. Because confidence isn't about waiting until you feel ready. It's about showing up, taking the leap, and realizing you were capable all along. There's this quote by Susan Jeffers that says, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." And if there's anything the outdoors, adventure, exploration has taught me, it's that fear, it doesn't go away. You just get better at moving through it. A lot of people assume that because I've done so much hiking, camping, and solo adventuring, I must not get scared anymore. I must be fearless. Well, let me tell you right now, that couldn't be further from the truth. Fearlessness doesn't exist. If someone tells you they're fearless, they're lying. Because fear isn't something you just eliminate. It's something you learn to carry with you. The real difference between those who move forward and those who stay stuck, it's not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act anyway. Every time I head out solo, every time I step onto an unfamiliar trail, every time I push myself into something I haven't done before, fear is still there. But the difference is I've learned how to work with it instead of against it. Because here's the truth. Fear, it's not the enemy. Fear is just part of the process. And the way you move through it, it's not by forcing yourself to be fearless or taking some massive reckless leap. It's by easing in step by step. Now, do I always follow that advice? Absolutely not. Do as I say, not as I do. I mean, I did drive an RV across the country from Colorado to Florida, having absolutely no clue as to what I was doing. But for most people, the more logical ones, growth doesn't have to look like that. You don't start by climbing the biggest mountain. You don't start by backpacking deep into the wilderness when you've never even gone on a day hike. You ease in, you take the first step, you get comfortable with the unknown little by little. And this is where so many people go about it wrong. They think that they have to go all in, do something huge, or make some drastic change overnight. But that kind of pressure, it backfires. It feels overwhelming. So what do? They do nothing at all. They stay stuck, waiting for the fear to disappear, instead of realizing that the only way to make it smaller is to move with it. My first real solo RV camping trip wasn't out in the middle of the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere. It was at a campground. I went for my birthday, stayed a few days, and honestly, I wasn't that scared because I did have some level of security being at a campground. But there was a moment when I did have to sit with a little bit of fear, when I had no choice but to face this uncertainty head on. One night, a massive thunderstorm rolled in. And when I say massive, I mean hail, wind, trees swaying, the whole shebang. I sat there in my RV thinking, well, there's literally nothing I can do about this. I just have to ride it out and hope a tree doesn't fall on us and crush us to death. And you know what? That was a huge lesson for me because in that moment, I realized fear and control are two different things. I wasn't in control of the storm. I couldn't stop the hail or move my camper or change what was happening outside. But what I could control was my reaction. I could either sit there panicking or I could just let it go, accept the situation, and trust that I'd figure it out if I needed to. And that's where real confidence starts. Not in controlling everything, but in knowing deep down that you'll handle whatever happens. Now, the first time I really felt fear in my RV, that was a whole different story. It was my very first boondocking trip. And if you're not familiar with the term, it basically means camping off grid without traditional hookups. I still had water in my camper and solar panels for power, but no direct access to electricity, water, or sewer like you'd get at a campground. Just me, my RV, my friend, and whatever I brought with me. As I just mentioned, I wasn't alone. I did have a friend with me, but that did not make things easier. If anything, it was a crash course in pushing through uncertainty. The drive to the campsite was treacherous, steep grades, winding roads. My RV was getting pushed to its limits, and it was brand new. Then, within 6 hours of arriving, the camper batteries completely died. And yes, this was a huge user error. We had no power for 3 days in the middle of nowhere. And at that point, I had no idea how to boondock. I had never dealt with an electrical failure like that. I had no choice but to figure it out. And that trip, it was full of moments like this. Like realizing my hitch was electric and I had no power, which meant I couldn't even hook my RV back up to my truck to get us out of there. So what did I do? Exactly what I had to do. I figured it out. One by one, I solved problems I'd never faced before. And that's when it clicked. Fear isn't a sign that you're not capable. It's just the feeling you get when you're about to grow. When I think back to every major moment where I had to push through fear, whether it was sitting in that thunderstorm, losing power in my RV, or standing at the start of a trail I wasn't sure I could finish, fear was never the problem. The problem is when we let fear dictate our actions. Because in life, we treat fear like a stop sign. We wait until we feel ready. We wait for the fear to go away before we take action. But the truth is, fear doesn't mean stop. It means go. And I've mentioned this many times in past episodes. Fear means you're stepping into something new. It means you're expanding your limits. And when you learn to recognize it that way, fear stops being something that holds you back and starts being something that pushes you forward. Because the more you do, the more proof you give yourself. Proof that you can handle the uncertainty. Proof that you can figure things out. Proof that fear isn't a reason to stop. It's just part of the process. So no, fear isn't something to avoid. It's something to move through. Instead of waiting for it to disappear, start seeing it for what it really is. Evidence that you're stepping into something bigger. If there's one thing adventure has taught me, it's that you don't always feel capable before you actually are. Most of the time, growth, it doesn't come with a warning. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Sally, you ready for this now?" No, it just throws you in. And that's how you realize what you're capable of in real time. I see so many women hesitate when it comes to trying something new, whether it's traveling solo, hiking a new trail, or it's just stepping outside of their usual routine. Not because they aren't strong enough, but because they think they aren't. But capability isn't something you just know about yourself. It's something you have to prove to yourself. And more often than not, that proof comes in the form of a challenge you weren't expecting. Maybe it's when you find yourself miles into a hike that's tougher than you thought, and instead of turning back, you just push through. Or maybe it's when you travel solo for the first time and realize you can, in fact, navigate a new place on your own. Or maybe it's when you finally say yes to something you've been putting off, only to realize you were so much more capable than you gave yourself credit for. This is exactly why I started leading women's group trips, because I see so many women holding themselves back, not because they can't do the thing, but because they think they can't do the thing. But when you put yourself in an environment that challenges you, that stretches you, that proves to you what you're actually made of, everything shifts. You stop overthinking, you stop doubting yourself, and for maybe the first time in a long time, you actually start to see how fucking strong you truly are. So think back to something that once felt impossible to you, something that scared the hell out of you, something that at the time you weren't sure you can actually handle, but you did. And that right there is proof Proof that you can figure things out. Proof that even when things don't go as planned, you adapt. Proof that you are so much more capable than you think. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough. I don't know if I'm brave enough. Ask yourself, have I ever figured out something hard before? Because chances are you have. And guess what? You will do it again. And once you start proving to yourself what you're capable of, something else happens. You stop filling every moment with doubt, distraction, and the need to do more. And you start actually being present. One of the reasons I keep coming back to adventure, to the wild, to these experiences is because when you strip everything else away, you finally start to see yourself a little bit more clearly. Out there, there's no inbox. There's no to-do list screaming for your attention, no distractions pulling you in a million directions, just you, exactly as you are. And sometimes that's exactly what we need. In a world that constantly demands more from us, more productivity, more achievement, more proving yourself, stepping into nature reminds you that you don't have to do more to be enough. You just have to be. Because in everyday life, it's so easy to get caught up in doing, checking the boxes, keeping up, proving yourself, feeling like you have to have everything figured out. But out there, Mother Nature doesn't ask you to be anything other than present. She reminds you what actually matters. She reminds you that you don't have to have all the answers. And when everything slows down, the noise, the pressure, the constant pull to do more, you're left with this space to think, to breathe, to just be. And for some people, that kind of stillness feels really uncomfortable. When there's no distraction, no background noise, no constant input, it can feel almost unsettling, like you don't know what to do with yourself. And I get that, because when you're used to always being on, stillness can feel like something you need to escape. But here's the thing, if you sit with it long enough, it stops feeling like emptiness, and instead it starts feeling like clarity. I've always craved that silence, that stillness, the kind of quiet that lets you actually process things. And it's never been something I had to learn to be comfortable with. It's something I seek out, because in that quiet, something shifts. Without the noise, without the distractions pulling you in a million directions, you start to actually hear yourself. And that's when you realize you don't need more information, more validation, or more certainty. You just need to trust yourself enough to take that next step. And I think that's why I've been so drawn to creating experiences that allow women to step into this space, to step away from the noise of everyday life and into something that reminds them of who they truly are. Because sometimes you just need to get out of your current environment to really see yourself again. I watched it happen over and over again while we were in Costa Rica, standing near a waterfall, walking along the beach, or hiking to the top of a mountain that just takes your breath away. I've seen women arrive feeling weighed down by stress, fear, and doubt, and walk away feeling lighter, more connected, liberated, and completely alive. Because there's something about being in a place that demands your presence. Whether it's the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, the stillness of a mountain peak, or the rush of standing beneath a waterfall that just strips all the noise away and brings you back to yourself. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to book a flight across the world to experience this. Sometimes all it takes is just stepping outside your front door. Go for a walk, leave your phone behind, sit outside with no distractions, just you and the world around you. Because clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from creating space to actually hear yourself again. And when you do, you start to remember what really matters. The biggest lessons I've learned in life, they didn't come from a book. They didn't come from a seminar. They didn't come from some Google search. And they sure as hell didn't come while I was waiting to feel ready. They came from experience, from saying yes to the things that scared me, from stepping into the unknown before I had it all figured out, from trusting myself to handle whatever came next. And that's what I hope this episode leaves you with today. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to know exactly how things will go. You don't need to wait until you feel fearless, because that will never happen. You just need to start, because every time you step outside of your comfort zone, every time you push through fear, every time you let yourself be in the moment instead of trying to control everything, you prove to yourself what you're capable of. And that right there, that's what changes you. If you've been feeling the pull to step outside your comfort zone in a real, tangible way, come join us. This year, I'm leading 2 women's group trips to Bali and Banff National Park, places that do exactly what we've talked about today. Places that take you out of your routine, challenge you in the best way possible, and remind you how strong and capable you are. If you want to learn more, check out the link in the show notes. But whether it's on a trip with me, a solo hike, or just sitting outside for 10 minutes today, let this be your reminder to start. Because trust, confidence, and growth, they don't come from knowing. They come from doing. Thanks for tuning in today. If this episode hit home, subscribe and share it with a friend, because together we can bring more women into this wild, unapologetic space. Remember, waiting until you feel ready is the fastest way to nowhere. So show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. Until next time, stay wild.